You don't just wake up one day and decide to lie to the man you love. But that's exactly what I did. Because life backed me into a corner where the truth couldn't survive. My name is Claire Bennett. I'm an ordinary woman from a small town in Indiana. Nothing about my life was ever extraordinary. My husband, Tom, worked as a heavy machinery repairman, quiet, dependable, never complained. We had 3 kids, 1 girl, 2 boys. Our rented house sat on the edge of town, drafty old, but the only place that ever felt like home. I used to think that was how life would be. Modest, a little hard, but filled with love and family. Until one February morning when the roads were slick with ice, and the air could cut through your skin. Tom had an accident at work. A machine collapsed on his legs during a night shift. I still remember the call from the hospital. The nurse's voice was calm, but my heart dropped so fast I thought I was going to pass out. Tom survived, thank God, but he couldn't walk properly again. The doctor said it'd take a year of physical therapy, maybe more. His job didn't keep his position. Our health insurance ran out in 2 months. That's when everything started to unravel. Slowly, painfully, piece by piece. I threw myself into work. I got a job as a line cook at a local diner, standing 10 hours a day. Arms covered in grease burns. Feet aching so bad I'd cry in the bathroom on breaks. Tom stayed home, his pride shrinking day by day. Our youngest got a fever one week, and I didn't take him to the doctor. We couldn't afford it. One afternoon I took Lily, our daughter, into a pharmacy. She stopped in front of a box of colored pencils, staring like it was made of gold. I asked if she wanted them. She shook her head and whispered, "It's okay, Mom. I'm just looking." The box was $6.49. I didn't have enough. That night, I lay in bed next to Tom, listening to his uneven breathing, and cried silently into the pillow. He never complained, but his eyes told me everything. He hated being a burden, and knowing that broke me more than the poverty ever could. Then the landlord gave us a final notice. 2 months behind on rent. 7 days to pay or we'd be evicted. I went door to door looking for extra work, cleaning, babysitting, dishes. Everyone said no. We're not hiring. Or we need someone younger. I came home one evening and collapsed on the couch, exhausted to the bone. Tom sat in the bedroom, wrapped in bandages, while the cold wind hissed through broken window panes. That was the moment I realized I would take help from anyone, even if it meant walking into the dark. And that's when Renee appeared. It was raining. I stood under a bus stop awning, soaked and shivering. A woman walked up beside me, mid-40s, red trench coat, glossy heels, deep burgundy lipstick. She lit a cigarette, glanced at my oil-burned hands, and said, "Rough day." I gave her a tired smile. "Every day's rough." She nodded, took a drag, and exhaled like she'd just blown away years of stress. "I used to be you," she said. 3 kids. Sick husband. No money. Nothing left but pride. I didn't say anything. I should have walked away, but something in her eyes held me there. Like she knew exactly what I was going through. She pulled a small card from her purse and handed it to me without looking. "If you want out," she said, "come here. Ask for Renee." It was an address to a hair salon in a sketchy part of town. A phone number written in red ink. I didn't ask questions. She walked away, heels clicking on the wet sidewalk like a drumbeat from the devil himself. I kept that paper in my coat pocket for 3 days. I'd pull it out, stare at it, put it back. On the 4th day, the electric company called. We owed $112, or they'd shut us off. I opened my wallet. I had $17. That night, I told Tom I got a night cleaning job. He smiled weakly, grateful. "That's good," he said. "We'll be okay." I almost hugged him goodbye, but I was afraid I'd break down. The address led me to a white house with low lighting and a security camera above the door. Not a salon. I rang the bell. A tall woman opened the door. Cold eyes. She looked me up and down. "You here for Renee?" I nodded. She stepped aside. I walked in, and everything changed that night. I walked into that house with $17 in my wallet, and walked out with $300 in my hand, and a soul heavy enough to drown in. No one dreams of this. No little girl grows up hoping to sell her body to strangers. But when the world turns its back on you, you learn to survive, even if it means losing pieces of your soul along the way. When that door closed behind me, I knew my life had just taken a turn I could never undo. That White House didn't look like anything I'd ever known. The air reeked of strong perfume, cheap whiskey and cigarette smoke. A large table sat in the center of the room, dimly lit with orange-red bulbs like something out of a movie. Women of all ages sat around it, some laughing too loud, some fixing their makeup, some staring blankly into their drinks. Renee walked out from a back room, her black curls bouncing, her tight plum dress hugging every curve, her heels clicking like a clock counting down. She looked me up and down with no expression. "Name?" she asked. I stammered. "Claire." "Not anymore. You'll need something softer. Something they remember." She lifted my chin, eyes like glass cold and sharp. "How about Amber?" "Amber. Not my name. Not even close. A name for someone else entirely." But I nodded. Not because I liked it, but because Claire Bennett, the wife, the mother, the good woman, she couldn't feed her family anymore. Maybe Amber could. My first night, they sent me to a private party at a luxury hotel downtown. Renee handed me a tight black dress short enough to make me pull it down every time I moved, a pair of high heels that felt like stilts, and a bottle of perfume she said makes men lose their minds. Before the car pulled away, she told me just one thing: don't fall in love. Don't get drunk. Don't cry. When I stepped into that hotel suite, my heart was pounding so hard I couldn't breathe. Men in suits milled about, holding glasses of scotch, flashing fake smiles. One of them, maybe in his 50s, pointed at me and gestured like I was a server. I walked toward him, knees trembling. That night, I did something I swore I never would. And when I left the hotel at 3 a.m., I didn't cry. I just sat in the back of the car, staring out the window, holding a white envelope with $300 inside. These hands that once made pancakes and held my babies, had just earned money in a way I couldn't say out loud. When I got home, I scrubbed my skin raw, slipped into bed next to Tom, and pretended I'd just come home from mopping floors. He slept through it all, peaceful, unaware, and I was already becoming someone else. The nights blurred after that. I learned how to layer foundation thick enough to hide exhaustion. Learned how to smile like I meant it. Learned to read men who would tip, who would grab too hard, who needed someone to talk to more than someone to touch. I was slapped once, called names more times than I could count. But I always walked out with money. And money was what we needed. Within a month, I caught up on rent. Bought Lily that art set she kept staring at in the store. Told her my second job, gave me a bonus. She hugged me tight and said, "You're the best mom in the world." I smiled, but inside I was hollow. One night after work, Renee called me out onto the balcony. She lit a cigarette, the smoke curling in the cold air. "I know that look, Claire," she said. I blinked. "What look?" "You still think this is temporary. That one day you'll get out. But there is no out. You either learn to swim in this world, or you drown." I said nothing. My heart clenched. "But," she added, "if you're willing, there's more money on the table. Real money. You've got the face for it. The body. Just need to know how to use it." She handed me a small black business card. No name, just a phone number and the words, "Private clients only." I didn't call. Not at first. Something deep inside me still whispered, "Don't go further." That whisper sounded like Claire. But then Tom relapsed. He needed an MRI. The hospital wanted $1,200 up front. I had $40. So, I made the call. My first private client was a businessman. Widowed. Rich. Lived in a mansion just outside the city. He wasn't rough, not even close. In fact, he was too gentle. He wanted me in a white dress. Wanted dinner, jazz music, soft conversation, before anything happened. When I left at midnight, he pressed $2,000 into my hand without blinking. "Amber," he said, "you're more than what you do." I didn't know what to say. That's when I realized this job wasn't just about sex. It was acting. Becoming the woman society doesn't let us be. Some nights, I was the shy secretary. Other nights, the seductive wife. And sometimes just someone to hold. Every role chipped away at who I once was. They say survival makes you strong. But sometimes survival just makes you numb. One night, I came home and found Tom awake at the kitchen table. A mug of tea sat in front of him, cold and untouched. His voice was low. "Claire, what are you doing every night?" I froze. My hand clutched my purse tightly. "You've changed," he said. "Your eyes, they're colder. You're not you anymore." I wanted to tell him. God, I wanted to spill it all. But how could I? "I'm just trying to keep us alive," I whispered. He nodded slowly, but said nothing more. That night, we lay in bed, backs turned, an ocean between us where once there was only love. I sold my body to feed my family, but every dollar I brought home took another inch of my soul away. Secrets are heavy. You carry them long enough, and they don't just weigh you down, they start to rot everything you love. There are some things I thought I could bury forever. But secrets never sleep. They bleed through your eyes, slip into your words, and eventually destroy everything. It all started with a lipstick stain. A deep red mark on a napkin I'd forgotten to throw away. Tom found it in the pocket of my coat. Such a small thing. Almost laughable, but enough to crack a world already hanging by a thread. "You never wear this shade," he said, holding the napkin, his voice calm in the scariest way. I froze. The excuse caught in my throat. I didn't know what to say because I had lied too many times. After that day he changed. He came home earlier. Called me at odd hours. Sometimes he'd just stare at me too long, like he was trying to figure out where the real me had gone. I tried to stay calm. Smiled more. Cooked his favorite meals. Paid attention to every detail. But the harder I tried, the more it felt like I was flailing in a net. Every movement just pulled it tighter around me. And then the moment I feared most arrived. One night, after a private client, I came home and found Tom sitting in the car in front of the house. The headlights were still on. He didn't speak, just handed me a photo. I recognized it instantly. It was me, in a red dress, outside a hotel, kissing a man. "I hired someone to follow you," he said. "I didn't know if I should hope you were cheating, or pray that you were being forced into something." I crumbled. There was nowhere to run. No lie big enough to hide behind. "I did it for the family," I whispered. "For you. For our daughter. I didn't have a choice." He was quiet for a long time. Then he let out a laugh, bitter, dry, broken. "You had a choice. You just didn't choose me." The next morning he packed his things and left. Lily asked where Daddy was. I lied again. Told her he needed time to think. She nodded, but her eyes knew better. Kids always do. They feel the brokenness in the silences, in the half-hugs, in the dinners where nobody speaks, in the nights when Mom cries quietly behind the bathroom door. I spiraled. The work stopped being survival. It became punishment. I took more clients, drank more, slept less, ate nothing. One night, I woke up in a stranger's apartment, unable to remember his name. My wrist was bruised, my face swollen. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back. Renee noticed. "You can't keep going like this," she warned. "Clients are complaining. You need to step back." But I didn't stop, because stopping meant facing myself, and that terrified me more than anything else. Then it happened. I got a call for a new client. Private. Wealthy. Generous, they said. I didn't ask questions. I needed the cash. I arrived at a secluded mansion outside of town. And the moment I stepped inside, I knew I'd made a mistake. The man wasn't like the others. His eyes were cold, predatory. When the door locked behind me, I realized I was trapped. He didn't want conversation. No drinks. No games. He wanted control. I fought. Screamed. Bit. But he was stronger. And he hit me. I woke up in a hospital. Lip split. Nose bleeding. Shoulder dislocated. A nurse asked if I wanted to call the police. I shook my head. I couldn't. Because then the world would know who I really was. My daughter would know. Tom showed up at the hospital. No one called him, but somehow he knew. He stood silently by the bed, said nothing, then handed me a cup of water. You still care? I asked, voice cracked. He looked at me. Always. But love doesn't fix everything. I cried. Not because I was hurt, but because for the first time in months, I wasn't pretending. I became a stranger to the man I loved, a ghost to the child I raised, and a prisoner to the secrets I buried. After that I stopped. No more clients. Renee didn't argue. The phone rang, I let it go. I started seeing a therapist, an older woman with sad eyes and soft hands. I told her everything. Every scar. Every lie. Every night I played pretend. She didn't judge me. Just asked one question. Claire, what happens if you forgive yourself? I didn't know. I never thought I deserved that. I started writing a journal. Every night, one page. Letters to the future, a future, where maybe I could be honest without shaking. One night, Lily walked into my room. She saw me writing and asked, "What are you writing, Mom?" I smiled and pulled her close. A story. About a woman who got lost, but is trying to find her way back. The road back is long, winding, and filled with pain. But sometimes the first step is just telling the truth. Some things are broken beyond repair, but there's still life left in the pieces if you're willing to rebuild. I knew I couldn't go back to what I had before. The family, the love, the innocence. It was all destroyed in those dark months. But the only thing I knew was that I couldn't keep running from it any longer. I was tired of the lies, the sleepless nights, the constant need to please others while neglecting myself. Tom was gone, and I couldn't keep him. But Lily, she still needed me. And I needed to find myself again. After leaving the hospital, I spent some time reflecting on everything. Renee had called me, but I didn't answer. I knew she just wanted me to come back to work, but I couldn't. I couldn't go back to that vicious cycle. The cost was too high. I started looking for a new job. Not the old one. Not the kind that made me sell my body. I needed to do something I could be proud of. Every morning, it felt heavier than the last. But I knew if I didn't start somewhere, I would remain stuck in the past. A week later, I started working at a small cafe in the city. It wasn't much money, but it felt peaceful to walk in there every morning. The owner was an older woman named Evelyn. She didn't ask too many questions, but there was a sadness in her eyes that made me think she knew the scars I tried to hide. One day, while I was wiping down a table, she came up to me and said, "Claire, don't let your past define you. Everyone has scars. But if we don't give ourselves a chance, how can we ever be ourselves?" I didn't say anything, just smiled. For the first time, I felt like I could start over. It was a small thing, but that job was a new step, even if it wasn't easy. One evening, while working late, I got a call. It was Tom. My heart stopped when I heard his voice on the other end. "Claire, I want to meet you." I didn't respond immediately. It had been so long since I'd heard his voice. Memories rushed back. I didn't know what I wanted, but I knew I couldn't keep avoiding him. "What do you want to say?" I asked. "Can we meet?" he asked, his voice pleading. "I don't want to lose you. Lily can't lose her mother. I can't lose you." I stood there frozen. holding onto the towel in my hand. Could I forgive myself? Could I open up to him after everything that had happened? At that moment, I knew I had to make a decision. Lily needed me, but Tom did too. And I had to find myself. To be a good mother, a strong woman, I had to learn how to forgive, not just him but myself. The next day, I agreed to meet Tom at an old cafe we used to go to. When I walked in, he was already there, looking at me as though we hadn't been apart for years. "Are you okay?" he asked, his eyes tired and regretful. "I'm sorry. I didn't know how much I left you to bear." I sat down across from him and looked him in the eyes. "Tom," I began, "I don't need your apology. I need you to understand. What I did wasn't because I wanted to. I did it because I had no choice. But I can't keep doing this. And I need you to understand that." He was silent. After a while he said, "I want to help you. What can I do? I don't know what you've been through, but I don't want you to go through it alone." We talked for a long time. Not about past mistakes but about the future. What I needed to do to get back on the right path, to start over. After that meeting, I felt a little lighter. Maybe Tom wasn't everything, but we could rebuild something together. And I would never go back to that old path. I kept working at the cafe. Every day, I felt a little stronger. Sometimes when I looked out the window, I thought about everything I'd been through. There were nights when I wondered if I would ever find joy again. But then I realized no matter what, I was still alive. And that was a miracle. But life was never easy. One day, while I was cleaning the cafe, Renee walked in. She looked at me with a kind of disappointment. "You've left it all behind, Claire," she said. "You think you can just run away from it? This is just the beginning." She left a business card on the counter and walked out without saying another word. "Call me when you're ready." I looked at the card. Everything came rushing back. But this time I knew I had a choice. No one could decide for me anymore. I'd learned a painful lesson. Every choice comes with a price. But the greatest value is knowing how to stand up after you fall, and not letting the mistakes of the past destroy you. I didn't know what the future would hold, but I knew, at least now, I was living true to myself. The hardest part isn't finding the strength to stand up. It's finding the courage to stay standing when everything tells you to fall.